It is October 27th, everyone, and we are going to be covering Unit 4, Section 1 of Building a New Nation, Articles of Confederation Government Notes. Here we go. So Americans had a variety of ideas about how they thought their new government should run. And Americans are going to experience something a little bit like Goldilocks syndrome. Goldilocks gets to her first bowl of porridge and it's too hot, and then the second one is too cold, but the third one is just right. So for Americans, being Goldilocks, their first government under British rule was too harsh. Their second form of government, which is the Articles of Confederation today, is going to be too weak. And then their third attempt at government, which will be the Constitution, is going to be our just right. So today we're focusing on that second bowl of porridge, the second attempt of government that's going to be too weak. But they do have a good plan in place. Even though this government's going to fail, they attack it as they should. So they're going to take elements of former governments they've experienced and take elements that they like. So from the Magna Carta back in the year 1215 was an English law that stated that monarchs were subject to the law. Americans liked that idea, and so they're going to take that and add it to their new government. From the more recent English Bill of Rights, which declares the supremacy of Parliament, the Americans borrowed this idea that your legislative branch write laws instead of kings and queens. And we also take and borrow elements of government from our own attempted self-governing in colonial America, such as the town meetings of New England, the Virginia House of Burgesses, and even the Mayflower Compact. So Americans are taking former government structures that were successful and attempting to apply them to a new government structure, which is a good idea. It's kind of like a test you study and study for, and then you fail it. Like, Americans are doing all the right things, but we're just going to create a government that's just not quite strong enough. But it's a good, like all failure, a great learning experience. Let's see. Each state, and we get to call them states now, not colonies, had its own constitution, which limits its state government and protects the rights of each citizen within their borders. Thomas Jefferson is famous for his ideas on religion in his home state of Virginia. He wrote a law called the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, which states that no one in Virginia could be forced to attend church or financially support a church, meaning like you couldn't be forced to pay a tax in Virginia that would support churches. It gave true religious freedom in Virginia by not forcing it on anyone. So everything was optional as far as faith and government. State constitutions also regulate suffrage. Suffrage is a big word we'll be using for the next several months. It sounds like a bad thing because suffrage sounds like suffering, which is bad. But suffrage means the right to vote. So that was regulated by each different state back then. And so different states could have different requirements as to who could be a voter, although most consistently, most states require that you be a white male who owned property and was in good standing with the government paying your taxes. So that is your typical voter in the 1780s. Our first government is called the Articles of Confederation. It's our first national government of the United States. It had one branch of government, the National Congress, and they could print a national currency. They could make money. They could also borrow money from states and countries. They could borrow soldiers, militias from their home states. The National Congress can make treaties with other nations. But states also had the power to refuse a request from the National Congress, which is interesting because states certainly can't refuse laws passed by Congress today. There was no president, no executive, and there was no court system or judicial. Red flag right there. So here are that government's weaknesses, its deficiencies. With only one branch of government, a national Congress, there was no executive branch to carry out congressional laws, nor a judicial to make sure they were constitutional. That national Congress did not have the power to levy or collect taxes, so that government had a really hard time raising money to support the country. There were no checks and balances. With a singular branch of government and only one group of people, men, running the country, there was really nothing to inhibit them from becoming corrupt. We also have states creating their own currencies. So you have a national currency, state currency, plus your gold and silver. So technically 3 different currencies in circulation, all with different values, which makes trade pretty complicated. Without the ability to collect taxes, there was no money to support an army or navy, which means as far as military self-defense goes, our nation was dependent on state militias to guard us. And if that National Congress wanted to pass a law, 9 out of the 13 states had to approve it, which is more than a simple majority, which would have been 7, but 9. Try to get 9 out of 13 people to agree to where to go eat on a Sunday evening. Really difficult and challenging to pass laws. So the Second Continental Congress back in 1777 organized and passed the Articles of Confederation government and sent that government proposed to each of the 13 states for ratification or official approval. It took 4 years, but eventually all 13 states adopted it, and our first national government was approved in 1781, ripe and ready to go after we won the war in 1783. So at least we did have a government to put in place and practice at war's end. Now, there are 2 laws regarding westward expansion that the National Congress passed. The Articles of Confederation government is only going to last about 10 years. And these are the 2 laws that you need to know that it passed. The first is called the Land Ordinance of 1785. And we're going to take all these states in the Northwest, and on your notes you can see a map of this. It's like present-day Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. And we're going to organize that land into little square acre plots. We're going to survey it, map it, and sell off different quantities of land to the public. And hopefully Americans are willing to move there. And they certainly are. I know we've talked in class about how the Ohio River Valley is desirable farmland. So those little squares are divided into townships, which are like 6 square miles, and then they subdivide that into smaller plots for sale to the public. And that's how our government was able to raise money to pay off war debt. Since we couldn't collect taxes, we sold formerly public land to people and turned it into private land. The second law I want you to know is the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. So 2 years after the Land Ordinance, we needed to establish a system for admitting new states to the Union. The little squares were so popular that, tens of thousands of people are moving to the Northwest, and they want representation in that National Congress. And so we needed to come up with a way as to how that area can have new states, because we've always had 13, and now we need a system of admitting more states to the Union. And so the Northwest Ordinance sets that up. And also it provides for public education in the Northwest, and it outlaws slavery in the Northwest. So the issue of slavery already coming to a government head in the late 1700s. Now, this is what that land ordinance would have looked like. So here you see the Northwest in green and a township sort of highlighted here. I hope you can see my cursor. And you can see how large these sections are. So a township contains 36 square mile sections. Each of these sections is 1 square mile, and then a township, as it says here, is 6 square miles. So you could purchase a half section, a whole section, or even a quarter section. And all of these squares, look like this little tiny grid system that you can see in Ohio. And this is the year each of those states are admitted to the Union. Here are our Great Lakes and rivers. Northwest Territory has the Ohio River sort of outlining it to the south, and the Mississippi River highlighting it or creating a boundary here to the west, of course. So you should be able to see that in your notes. Your homework tonight, I'm going to put up on the screen just to kind of walk you through it. I'll use my first period class as an example. In your course materials, you will see in the green folder a document called the Northwest Territory Homework. You're going to open that in Kami. Everything you need to complete the homework is on the page. You will need to read the introduction and the steps to statehood, and a map is provided for you. The map activity has 5 directions, 3 on the front, 2 on the back, that you need to sort of write or draw on the map up here using your Canvas tools, highlighting and text box and all that good stuff. And then once your map is finished, you're going to answer these 5 questions beneath your mapping directions, and then don't forget to click turn in when you're finished so you get credit for today. But that's that. Message me if you have any questions. I hope you have a great day.